Chapter 58. The First Commandment. Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to 3. And God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 to 3. The giving of the law was preceded by requirements for physical sanctification. The law was given on Mount Sinai in an unlikely place from a humanistic perspective. In every respect, God's requirements went against humanistic anticipations. The sum total of humanistic views and expectations can be expressed in the word magic. The word for us usually carries the meaning of childish or primitive beliefs, and this prevents us from understanding its meaning and danger. Magical beliefs begin with two basic presuppositions. First, a belief in the continuity of being, so that what man does can affect or govern whatever forces or being are ultimate in the universe. And second, a worship of power. There are other key beliefs, but for our present concern, these alone must be considered. Magic is usually naturalistic rather than supernaturalistic. Its view of natural phenomena can include the supernormal. Gerhardus van der Loo, 1890 to 1950, said of ancient religions and their magical perspective that, quote-unquote, God is above all the name for some experience of power. The word God for us is a much too personal term to give a clear idea of what pagan gods were. Van der Loo wrote, From the emotions of the young maidens of Troezen, for instance, who before marriage sacrificed their tresses, there arose the name and later the form of Hippolytus. This, however, implies no anthropomorphic theory nor Fourbacchian wisdom. The power in the experience leads to endowment with form. Surrender of maidenhood involves contact with some strange power, and this contact receives name and form. The goal of magic is control and domination. Magic is thus closely related to science, and its essential perspective is hostile to religion. Whereas religion normally seeks to know and obey the ultimate power, magic seeks control of ultimate power. It is closer thus to science and statism. To understand magic further, let us examine examples of it, both ancient and modern. In some cultures prior to planting, men and women copulate in the field to stimulate its fertility. In India, naked women drag a plough across a field by night. Kamjadalek tribesmen who dream of winning a girl's favour in their dream tell her so, and she submits. In a more modern example, a Pentagon official, as a juror, succeeded in gaining the acquittal of a young hoodlum on drugs and involved in criminal activities. When asked for his reason, he answered, "Next time it could be my son." What relationship was there between acquitting a hoodlum and a future possible trial of his son? The man was using power to establish a precedent in order to create, in the chain of being, a future mercy for his son and other sons. Another example. A man insisted religiously on mercy for a depraved criminal guilty of a vicious offence. In answer to objections, he said, "I do not believe God will be less merciful than I am." He was trying to teach God something about mercy. Because magic denies the biblical division between the uncreated being of God and the created being of all other life and things, and because it affirms the great chain of being, It believes that man's acts can affect all being. Magical practice embraces the power of contagion because of this continuity. Thus, it is held that if we disarm, the Soviet Union will disarm. If we are good to criminals, they will become good, and so on. God deals with this perspective through the prophet Haggai. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Ask now the priests concerning the law, saying, If one bear holy flesh in the skirt of his garment, and with his skirt do touch bread, or pottage, or wine, or oil, or any meat, shall it be holy? And the priests answered and said, No. Then said Haggai, If one that is unclean by a dead body touch any of these, shall it be unclean? And the priests answered and said, It shall be unclean. Haggai chapter 2, verses 11 to 13. This means that in the physical sphere, neither cleanness nor health are contagious, whereas dirt can pollute something clean, and disease can affect the healthy. In the moral sphere, justice and morality are not contagious, whereas evil and injustice are. Man, being fallen, can pollute, but he cannot purify. This is God's prerogative, and in his power. Thus, God begins by declaring that the good in Israel's life is entirely his doing. I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the land of bondage. Verse 2. Deliverance was not Israel's doing, but God's. God's statement to Paul sums up the matter. My grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. Any trust in a humanistic power system leads to magic because it assumes the ultimacy of human action. Next, God declares as the first commandment, Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Verse 3. This can also be rendered beside me, or to my face, or in my presence. It can also be read, no other God. The phrase before me or to my face was seen by Cole as related to a like phrase in Leviticus chapter 18, verse 18, forbidding polygamy. He wrote, This slightly unusual phrase seems also to be used of taking a second wife while the first is still alive. Such a use or breach of an exclusive personal relationship would help to explain the meaning here. It then links with the description of God as a jealous God in verse 5. This is a telling observation because this law requires an exclusive personal relationship. It means that no other source of power, blessing, hope, or anything else is to be sought outside the God of Scripture. We cannot limit God's power and effectiveness to any sphere while excluding it from others. The King James Version is very accurate at one particular point. Unlike modern versions, it reads, Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou is the singular person of the second personal pronoun form, and you is the plural. Modern English had dropped the singular form, whereas the true reading here is personal. While all the covenant people are addressed, God does not speak to them as a group, but as individuals. The covenant was with Israel as a group, and every person in particular. Another point, according to Matt and Buba, the laws of the Ten Commandments are more accurately translated as You will not have, you will not make. We have a series of orders. God is not negotiating a treaty, contract, or covenant with Israel. He is granting it in His grace and mercy, and, as a result, the commandments are unilaterally given. Negotiated laws represent a consensus, not an ultimate order of justice. Humanistic law expresses not God's justice, but either a man-created and imposed fiat will or a democratic consensus. As such, it is by nature unrelated to justice. It represents either human logic, as the older judicial scholars held, or experience, as Oliver Wendell Holmes insisted. Experience has now triumphed as the key to all spheres. The U.S. Supreme Court rules on the cases before it in terms of popular and legal experience. State schools increasingly stress the learning experience. Students are now taken on credit course trips to France, for example, in order to gain learning by experience. Law, however, must not be logic or experience. Its only valid foundation is in the being and nature of God. Any other doctrine of law will destroy a society. It is comparable to removing the bones from the body and bidding a man to stand. The Ten Commandments are variously divided. In Jewish form of our times and somewhat earlier, the first two verses are made the first commandment, and verses 3 to 6 are made the second one. St. Augustine added the second commandment to the first, and then divided the 10th. This division is still used by Roman Catholic and Lutheran churches. The Reformed and English arrangement is now more generally used. The only difference in these three forms is the division of the verses, not the content. Finally, it must be noted that the first commandment, by condemning any other god or source of power, is condemning syncretism. Syncretism is the attempt to unite two alien things or concepts in order to increase the available power. Syncretists in religion attempt to bring together their ideas of the best in all religions in order to increase their effectiveness and power. In the economic sphere, syncretists believe in a mixed economy, uniting capitalism and socialism, among other things. In politics, syncretists believe that a better world will emerge if conflicting political beliefs are merged into one order. In every sphere, syncretism is a violation of the first commandment, "Thou shalt have no other gods before me." Verse 3. Syncretism in every sphere emerges wherever there is a disregard for this law.